and a little reward for everybody being so patient. This is kind of a zoo with television, internet, and radio recording all going on simultaneously. And thanks again to the White Horse. And be sure and ask Heather where they're going to be a little bit later tonight. They're leading the area this fall, and it's going to be kind of a shame because they're one of my favorite local acts. Anyway, we're about to dig in for our bonus round, as I call it. We're going to vary from the cue sheet a little bit, where it says 60 seconds, because we only have two instead of all three candidates who go the full 90 seconds for this final round of questions and for the closing remarks as well. Welcome back to the final segment of our forum here at the White Horse for the Republicans running in the 5th District for the Genesee County Board of Commissioners. We have two of the three here. Matthew Telliga could not be with us, but we do in fact have candidates Cathy Lane and Bill Delaney, and of course our premier political pundits, Paul Rosicki, Lou Loudsinger, and the long-winded George Moss down at the end. Anyway, this is our final segment. We have one more round of questions, and then the candidates, as promised, will get an opportunity for a closing statement each. And I guess we begin the final question from Paul Rosicki.
Thank you, Tom. One of the hottest issues the county boards had to deal with lately is the whole issue of animal control. What would you recommend to improve the operation of that department, and in particular to reduce the euthanasia rate of the animals?
Well, number one, remember, people that are elected are not experts. I definitely will admit I'm not an expert in everything. So first of all, I would listen to the director that's there and to the comments of the volunteers who help so many different things work in this community, and get their opinions and then see what we can come up with to, again, save money. I had dogs. When I had dogs with my husband, that dog was on the bed at night too, and sometimes under the covers because, of course, she was cold. So I do love animals. But again, people come before animals. We have to treat our animals humanely. And so I know that we can't save every animal. And I know that with animal control, when you start having to bring in a lot of the animals that are running loose, that they're carrying a lot of diseases and things that are going to contaminate other animals that maybe someone couldn't afford to keep and had to turn in, hoping somebody else would adopt it. So although I want to save animals, I know realistically we can't save them all, so we have to put them down humanely, knowing that it's too bad that we have to do it, and we certainly don't have enough money to save all that we want to.
Bill Delaney, same question.
Thank you. The situation with animal control is not new to this county, and if we just look north, it's not new to Saginaw County, and I'm sure looking further around, it's a very big issue. It's a very large issue, and it's a very big issue for Genesee County. My suggestion, my resolution would be that the county should pursue a qualified private contractor to manage the animal control in Genesee County. And I say a qualified, not just whoever shouts the loudest or creates the greatest fuss gets the nomination, but a highly qualified operational company that has a track record of successfully managing and operating an animal control agency. It's a very, very difficult job. It's a very emotional job. And secondly, as far as the euthanasia rate, there's really, aside from those animals that have to be put down because of their extreme nature, and that to where we're referring as trained fighting pit bulls and that type of situation, I think the positive resolution to euthanasia would be to encourage and expand upon the adopt-a-pet program that is successful in the private organizations in Genesee County and is moving forward in Genesee County. Thank you.
Now, you see, now I think you're catching the George syndrome.
I was on George's time.
Good luck with that. Lou Lopsinger gets the next question, and it goes to Bill Delaney first.
It seems as though the KWA, Care County Water Authority, came at us from out of nowhere. One day, several months ago, the news came out, yes, we're going to put this pipeline in from Port Huron over to Genesee County. It's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful. Our rates will all be lower someday. What are your feelings about the KWA? There didn't seem to be any public comment, any ballot initiatives, just one day, all of a sudden, there it was. What do you think about that?
Well, as I mentioned in my opening statement, as far as my background, experience, and education, I have a great deal of 18 years experience dealing with the Genesee County Drain Commission and the Water and Waste Advisory Services, of which I held leadership positions. So the KWA is not a new issue to me, and it's an issue that I have supported throughout my term because of the ever constantly increasing water rates from Detroit, which have no end to the amount of increase, and the questionable use of those funds that are sent to Detroit and what they're used for. They're not used for the Water and Sewer Authority, they're used for operating Detroit. So therefore we had to do something, and this something is our resolution in Genesee County, and the contiguous counties going out to Lake Michigan is the KWA. And therefore I support that, and I have supported it ever since it was introduced by then Drain Commissioner Anthony Ragnow, and I find it to be, as far as controlling rates in the future, nobody's going to look into the crystal ball and say what they're going to be in the future, but they cannot be worse than what we have seen in the past increases from Detroit.
Okay, Cathy Lane, same question.
Again, I'm surprised, Lou, that you thought that this was something new. Anthony Ragnow introduced it many years ago, back in the 80s. But Jeff Wright, when he was elected, started working on it on a daily basis, even had some opposition initially, but he believed in it. I think he was right in his decision. I'm glad that he worked hard for it. Again, this is one of the times when an elected official, a department head, came up with an excellent idea, and he didn't give up. He worked for teamwork. He has all the elected officials in the county supporting him. We also know that the rates from Detroit can only go up because that system is 100 years old. You've seen in the city of Flint that because they have an older system, they are having more breaks, which is going to require repair, and I'm sorry to say, you've seen the resident rates that they have to pay. They're totally and absolutely frustrated. In Grand Blanc Township, where ours are only about 30 years old, we have to watch and make sure we're taking care of repairs now and not forgetting about them. But we have a much younger system throughout the county, so let's go for it, and I know the rates won't be astronomical like they are now.
George Moss, you have the final question, but not the last word.
Very briefly, and I'm taking some of my time back. I want to ask you about the demographics. The 5th district is pretty much known as a Republican district, and in 2012 it flipped to Democrat. Did the demographics change in the 5th district? Is that what accounted for the fact the Republicans lost the seat they've held for pretty well consistently over the years? So I want to know about the demographics, and what are your projections for the turnout coming up, since this is an off-year election?
Well, I can tell you that as clerk, when we looked at the 2010 census, Grand Blanc Township had an increase in population of 26%. We went from 29,000 to 35,000. Now you add to that roughly 8,000 from the city of Grand Blanc. So we had a significant increase, and I think most of that came from people in Flint who wanted to give their children a better education and a better way of life and a safer location in which to raise their family. And those voters, I would say, were probably Democratic, but I wouldn't even say that. I guess I'd give the Democrats kudos for being able to get out their voters in November 2012. But that was also a presidential year, so that also added to the higher turnout. That's when people vote. They vote in the races for governor in November, and they vote in November for president. Those are the times when most voters vote. Any special elections, any primaries, they make people say, oh, I don't want to vote straight Republican, I don't want to vote straight Democratic. And so that was the biggest change. I think that you're going to find that probably it's 50-50, and whoever comes out to vote and takes on their responsibility as a voter will make the difference in August and November.
All right, Bill Delaney, same question.
Thank you, George, and that's a very good question. You're correct, there has been a Republican seat for some 40 years, but I do not believe it's the demographics of the area that has changed the course of the election in 2012. I would suggest that besides the increase in residents in the entire district has shown itself to be a very independent voter type district. It isn't a straight party district, and therefore what was dramatic in 2012 was that national statistics, and I'm sure the statistics, if they were ever taken in Grand Blanc or Grand Blanc Atlas and Goodrich, would indicate that the Republicans stayed home. The Republicans stayed home and did not come out and vote for whatever their particular reason was, and we know what that is, and we're not going to discuss it. But secondly, the other side of it is that the Democrats did show up to vote. And that was 2012. We're now in 2014. It's a different year, a different tide, and I think a different result will be forthcoming.
Okay, that wraps up the questions, but as promised, each candidate will get 90 seconds for a closing statement. We started the opening statements with Bill Delaney, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
So we'll start the closing statements with Cathy.
Well, again, thank you very much for inviting me. I was glad, although anxious, to come. What I want to explain to you and to the voters in our district is, number one, I really do believe in public service. And as I did in Grand Blanc Township, I think leadership starts at the top. I cut back my pay 10%. I use my own car. I use my own cell phone. I don't look for perks. And I'm committed to do the same thing. What happened then in Grand Blanc Township was others were willing to give up a little bit. And if everybody gives up a little bit, we can save some of the jobs and have those people readily available to help the residents who they serve have better services. And they'll feel better when they know we're all in the same boat, and I'm willing to make that commitment again to the voters in my district.
Okay, Bill Delaney.
Thank you, Tom. Again, I wish to thank you very much for sponsoring this forum, and also to the three key questioners. You've done a great job, folks. I believe that number one is that the residents will look to the candidates as who has the background, experience, and education to serve their future needs as far as a county commissioner is concerned. And I think once they review that, they'll find that my experience, not only in a management position, but my college degree is in management. My entire professional life has been in managing people and solving problems and solutions. And in regards to that, I think that my experience already with the county government, through the road commission, through the drain commission, through being head of the charter member of the Economic Development Corporation, which, by the way, I think is a key element to the future of Genesee County as far as expanding our economic base. It can be done through and it hasn't been being done through the Economic Development Corporation, and I would be more than happy to be reconnected to that group, because I believe that they have funds necessary to go forward and to expand our small business, which is small business is where the jobs are created. Again, thank you so much for allowing us to be here.
It's a good thing we're wrapping this up, because you're getting more and more like George as we go along. It takes a lot of people to put on something like this, and it's in Genesee County, as many of you know, very often it's things are decided in the primary election. So we're intentionally looking at primary races where there are challenges to incumbents, where there are open seats, because the decision may be made in August and not held off until November. So we're looking at several races. We'll have some more coming up. And it takes a lot of people to put these on. And I want to say thank you to all of them, including the people that are here in the audience, but most importantly, to the candidates who participate. Because like I said earlier, decisions get made by those who show up. So Cathy Lane, Bill Delaney, Republicans running, be sure and get out and make your choice heard on it's August 5th, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
First Tuesday after
They
the
can
first.
also vote by absentee ballot if they're out vacationing. in
Oh, that's
August.
right. And those are probably out already in some
They are out,
cases.
but they're always available up to and including Monday before the election until 4 o'clock at your local clerk's office.
Good to know. And adding much credibility to our proceedings here is our premier political pundits, Paul Rosicki from Mott Community College. Paul, it's always good to work with you. And George Moss down on the other end, the windy George Moss from the University of Michigan, Flint. Also from, he hosts a show of his own, What's Going On flinttalkradio.com online. And you can hear him Wednesday mornings battling with J.D. Weingarten on the Morning Gazette with Mike Kilbreth. They square off for some great political debate. And adding a certain amount of sophistication and debonair and legitimacy to our panel is Lou Lobsinger from the Lou Lobsinger Show at Super Talk 1570 AM weekday mornings. Lou, it was nice to have you part of this. Thanks for being here. Thank you all for being part of it. And of course, our ever vigilant timekeeper and associate producer, Andrea Sutton, thank you. Captain Jack from RLX Sound, the sounds you want. Our media partners that are going to make this available on radio, on television, and on the internet as well. And of course, Chris and Steve Paulus and their wonderful staff here at the White Horse, where they allow us to talk politics in a bar. You know, some bars won't. Anyway, that wraps it up for today's primary candidate forum here at the White Horse. I'm Tom Sumner, and we'll see you next time.